How do you trace a club's success back to its very beginning? Can it ever be just one object? This is the story of Manchester City's 1904 FA Cup victory. A moment that changed not just our football club, but the city of Manchester. Before 93-20, Poznan's, bananas in the crowd, the ballet on ice, Mercer, 84,000 people at Main Road, there was this, a success that sparked the Manchester City we see today. With this trophy, I want to show you the moment this city turned blue. The catalyst for a legacy and a heritage which shapes Manchester City Football Club 126 years and counting. This is the story of what it meant then and today. With a little help from those that flourished because of that success back in 1904. Manchester's first trophy. And it was, by the way.
The 1904 FA Cup is so significant to Manchester because it's the point where football suddenly matters to Manchester. Football fans were going to games and so on, but the city as a whole didn't really grasp what football was about. People were aware of City and United playing in East Manchester, but they saw it, you know, it's an activity for working class men. And rugby was perceived as a sport that would build the man, would build build you into being a decent human being. But that 1904 success made football matter to everybody in Manchester. Suddenly Manchester was a football city. If you can think about, as a fan today, what's the most exciting you've ever been as a football fan? Aguero! That's the feeling in 1904. That Aguero moment is the feeling.
That feeling indeed. This trophy is vital for City, which is why we brought it home. But we want it to be enjoyed by everyone here in the country it was contested. There was only one place it could sit.
The National Football Museum has some of the most amazing objects on display, and in many ways objects like the FA Cup, they're the crown jewels. We've got like the Jules Rimet and the '66 ball that won the World Cup from Jeff Hurst's goal, and those are the crown jewels of football, and this FA Cup, you know, sits alongside that.
In the first season, when it took place in 1871, there were 15 clubs taking part, but by the 1900s it's grown to be a national competition with hundreds of teams, which thousands and tens of thousands of fans are increasingly coming to watch cup games, culminating in the FA Cup final itself. Quite simply put, it was the biggest competition you could win in English club football.
It was the national competition, it was the most important competition. The way it was perceived in England was the most important competition in the world.
Most important indeed. A century has passed, but City players who came after that great day in 1904 still realise the power of the FA Cup.
A chance here for players to walk a path trodden by City legends, stretching all the way back to 1904. Will one of these players be clutching the trophy at the end of today, forever associating themselves with a long and proud history of Manchester City?
Growing up, we used to be able to watch it on TV, one of the channels that I did have, and it was always a cup that had a special feel to it.
The FA Cup to me was always something so special. As a kid, from the FA Cup draws to right the way through to FA Cup final day. I think as a kid it was the biggest day of the season, really.
It means the whole world to be sitting next to this trophy, and to be able to lift it for Man City for 3 times is such a special feeling.
Well, let's have a word with Mike Somerville. Mike, you're looking very serious.
I'm just looking at the crowd, that's all.
Enjoying it.
That's your boyhood dreams, to play and win the FA Cup final.
The joy of Manchester City. What a great final this has been.
So prior to 1904, football didn't really have a place in the wider Mancunian society. A guy called Joshua Palby, who was the club's secretary and manager, he really sort of propelled the club forward in the 1890s. But he always felt that representing a district of Manchester wasn't enough. But looking forward, he felt that the way to capitalise, the way to promote football was to create a club to represent all of Manchester. And so in 1894, Manchester City get accepted into Football League as Manchester City. The biggest name in that team was a guy called Billy Meredith, who was a Welsh international. Meredith was loved in Wales. He arrived at City in October 1894, so just after the club had reformed as Manchester City. He always used to play with a toothpick in his mouth, and so he was a character, and you know, people talked about him, and he was loved, absolutely loved. These players were really turned into our first poster boys, our first heroes. You know, people would collect cigarette cards with their faces on. Tom Maley became manager in 1902, and the club was in the second division, and Tom Maley immediately turned this into an attack-minded team, an exciting team, and we got promoted as champions that year. And that sort of excitement of getting promoted as champions, it carried on. On the way to the cup final, City had played Sunderland, they played Middlesbrough. The home game against Middlesbrough was the highest crowd that had ever been assembled for a City or United game. They'd also played Arsenal, and then they played Sheffield Wednesday. And so Sheffield Wednesday were this major team. We played them in the semi-final. Crowds were increasing, the excitement was increasing. And so by the time of that semi-final, the atmosphere was quite significant. And then when they beat Wednesday and got to that cup final, it was incredible. And it was really between the semi-final and the final that football started to matter to Manchester a bit more.
We know what this win would have meant to Meredith and his teammates, because the FA Cup final remains one of the most important successes for any player.
What about any nerves, any butterflies in the tummy? Have you got any?
Not really, no. You know, I just want to get out there and play, you know.
Throughout your career, you could play for your country or whatever. The FA Cup stuck out to be something that when you finish playing, you've played in an FA Cup for, you've actually played at Wembley. The FA Cup in England is a very special thing to win.
When you walk out that tunnel and see the stadium separated, one colour blue as it was, one colour red, it's just an amazing atmosphere, a great feeling. It's a big build-up even before that, but that's realising you're entering a big stage here and a chance to win a trophy. So to be on that stage performing to win a trophy, the FA Cup is an amazing feeling.
I think then the excitement builds, and obviously the crowds are starting to come in, and when you warm up and you hear all the City fans cheering, that's probably the best feeling.
There's fireworks, the fans are cheering, there's music, there's everything that you can possibly ask for when you're walking out to a game, and then as soon as you have your first touch, then the nerves settle down a little bit then.
So people had been saving to get down to the cup final, and in the end 40,000 people travelled from Lancashire, which was viewed as the largest excursion of northerners ever, right? The largest sort of northern army going down to London. There was supposed to be more people on St Pancras Station than ever before because they just didn't know where to go. City played Bolton Wanderers in the final, and the cup final was held at the Crystal Palace grounds. The Crystal Palace was a major venue, if you like. It was an entertainment complex. It wasn't a great venue to view the final. It had held over 100,000, but probably of that 100,000, only about 50,000 could actually see the game properly. And so if you see photographs of it, sometimes you've just got people milling around. You haven't even got people watching the game. Back in Manchester, City had a reserve game at Hyde Road, and it had a crowd of over 10,000. And the reason why so many were there was that City had promised that somebody would walk around the pitch every 15 minutes with a chalkboard on them with the score and any significant moments of play. So, you know, Meredith's got a corner, that sort of thing. And so this guy would trudge around the pitch and the fans would be looking to see what the score was. So there's all this excitement.
And there still is.
Finals are always tough. It's always difficult because you know what good can come from it and what bad can come from it. But at the same time, you know, you've got yourself to that position, and you know you want to make sure you leave the stadium with the trophy. So I feel that's the day that players tend to turn out their best.
As soon as that first whistle goes and we either get a corner or throw in, the crowd is unbelievable. I think it's actually deafening. You can't really hear each other on the sidelines, or you can't hear the manager.
The game was quite tight, but City were on top for most of the game, but it was quite tight. It could have gone either way, really. And Billy Meredith, the great City captain, was the guy who scored the goal. It's probably worth reading his description of the goal. I was lying well out on the touchline, inside my own half. Livingston whipped out a wide pass. Archie Freeburn, the Wanderers' left half, touched the ball with his head, but failed to divert it. It landed at my feet. I made off down the wing. I must have dribbled 35 yards before I cut in to beat Bob Struthers, the Bolton back. Then I had a clear run to goal and I put the ball into the net just where I wanted. Di Davis had no chance whatsoever.
Belgium, far too much room. Summerby.
We just played as we always played. We played a quick attacking football, simple as that. And I was fortunate enough to be in the position to be able to lay the ball on for Neil Young to score. But Francis is very quick with the throw-ins, you see, and he always tells me that he picked the ball up quickly, threw it to me, and I crossed it. So he was the one that won the he's the one that won the game for us.
It's Willett with him. Summerby back to Young. It's there. Beautiful goal. Scored by Young. Made by Summerby.
We were an attacking team. We knew we were going to have most of the possession, and chances weren't going to come at a premium really. But we knew once the chance came, we had to take it, and luckily when it fell to Yaya, he tucked it away brilliantly.
Being Meredith added something else to it because he was our first proper star. He was football's first superstar, and scoring the goal, he was the captain. He scored this goal. It was Meredith's success, and it just felt perfect, and it sort of cemented his name forevermore.
You're just so excited for that final whistle, and as soon as it comes, it's just like jumping on the person next to you, making sure you hug everybody just to say congratulations. And the standard huddle of Championes, it is just, they're the best memories. Is sometimes you forget about the game, but the celebrations are just as good.
The game eventually finishes. It's tight, but one goal was enough. Whistle goes, game's over. Then there is a pitch invasion. City fans do run on the pitch.
It's just pure excitement once the final whistle goes. You just want to celebrate with the fans, with your teammates, with the coaching staff.
About to go and collect your medal. It's a great feeling. It's a long walk, but it's a great feeling once you finally get your hand on the medal and the trophy.
Now the FA Cup on show as Manchester City go up to receive it, led by Tony Book.
I can remember getting up there and Tony Book picking the trophy up and looking out and to the fans, which is like, well, that's a moment you always appreciate. It's a moment that will stay in your mind forever.
Well done, Tony Book.
So it was seen as this major success. There were a few speeches made, and then of course Meredith lifted the cup. Fans couldn't hear these speeches being made, but they saw Meredith lift this cup. The pubs start celebrating, people come out onto the streets. This is starting to feel like something significant. And it's starting to be more than just football fans. This is starting to be something that everybody's thinking about, everybody's starting to talk about. And that night was one of celebration.
Manchester's first trophy is secure. But how to celebrate it? A club with community at its core, its essence. We had to find a new way, something that would repeat forever, a way that meant all of Manchester could celebrate their newfound passion.
It wasn't specifically stated, we're going to parade the trophy. People started to turn out in Manchester in anticipation of this, and suddenly, sort of Monday lunchtime, 150 police were drafted in because they realised the city was going to be packed like never before.
This one event that can often bring people in together from across the city to share in a triumph that makes something that everyone can share as a Mancunian.
What actually happened, the team arrived, the city was packed, they then journeyed sort of behind the Midland Hotel, they turned left, they travelled down towards Deansgate, they then travelled up Deansgate, they cut across towards Market Street, went along Market Street, up Oldham Street, and then down Dale Street. And then they carried on past Piccadilly onto Ardwick. They went out of their way. They went to areas that you wouldn't expect them to go to.
We came along through Didsbury and it was packed on all the way on the sides of the roads, right the way into the centre of Manchester. It was unbelievable.
It's a great tradition, I think, it's to bring everyone out in the city where you've been playing your football all season and to celebrate with the fans. That's what football is about.
Wow, there's this many people that are willing to come out, and just seeing people on bus stops, in windows and places where they shouldn't be.
It's a great feeling, it's a great moment. And actually being in and around Manchester, seeing some of the streets and some of the restaurants and stuff like that, it's pretty cool.
It's nice when you actually catch eye contact with someone and that you can see them, they can see you looking at them, and it's like, wow, you really like cheering together at each other. That is like, that's a moment.
To see how many people filled the streets of Manchester and celebrated not just the men's success but our success that season this is why I came to the club, was to be a part of something like that and to be on an equal and to be on a par, and to see us celebrate success for both teams was an unbelievable feeling. And yeah, we had the best time ever. I think all the girls have never experienced anything like that, and it makes you feel so part of this club and what we all came here to do, which was to win trophies and to be recognised for the successes that we do have.
There was 3 carriages, 3 horse and cart, if you like. It's the easiest way to describe it. They were owned by a guy called Albert Alexander, and Albert Alexander owned a company that did horse and carts and carriages and so on. And so he led the homecoming. Next to him would have been Billy Meredith, the captain, with the cup, with blue and white ribbons on it, lifting it up every so often. Next to him would have been Tom Maley, the manager, and then packed in the back would have been all the other players. And obviously everybody wanted to see Meredith and the players and the cup. And so the carriages, the directors got a bit of stick off ordinary Mancunians, you know, here they come, that sort of thing. But it was important that they all celebrated this success. Because 1904, the club and the people of Manchester chose to do it, this wasn't a political decision, this wasn't someone telling us how to do it, this was us making it our own and making it something that we wanted, and it's carried on ever since.
They're nice occasions, real nice. Again, to do them for the first time for a lot of people, like the gap between the previous trophy was so long. A whole new set of fans. There was probably only a handful of fans that had been there prior to that, so it was nice.
Loads of heads, loads of shouting, loads of smoke. As I said, it's a lovely day. Every time you get on a bus, it's a great feeling before. And it's one of those you just want to enjoy the moment as long as possible.
To be able to have that moment to kind of reflect and kind of go, right, okay, we've done something special here, girls, and it's up there with one of the best feelings that I've ever had in football.
1904 was very much a success for all of us, for everyone in Manchester. It wasn't the players, it was all of us, right? And so when they're going down Dale Street and those other streets behind Piccadilly, and it's working class people, it's people from all different backgrounds, it's people, that's for us, it's our success. You know, very much Meredith and Tom Maley and others talked about this as being Manchester's success, not City's success specifically, and not the players' success, but the success of us, Manchester. This trophy being put on display is so significant to City, but not just to City, to Manchester.
These are truly sort of iconic objects connected with great moments in our sort of national history.
I think the history in any football clubs is vital. You know, no matter how long ago a club won a trophy, it's not forgotten. So Manchester City, it's got a huge history. You know, we look back to when these trophies were won early, and you know they'll never be forgotten. Just like the ones that have been won recently as well.
To know that Meredith lifted that trophy, to know that the first time it was paraded around the streets of Manchester, the entire population came out and City fans were wearing it, had blue and white ribbons on it, and all of that, it's so important.
History is massive from a football club because I think it's important to understand how the club was made, who were the people that made the club, who were the people that got football into this town and created this stepping stone in order for us to be successful at the minute.
Way back before any of us were born, this club won that trophy, which was the major tournament at the time, and did it before most of our major rivals.
For us, it's important that we keep building our history and we look back and we go, yeah, we were successful then, but we need to continue being successful.
We got approached by the original owner of the FA Cup saying that they wanted to sell it, and the fear was that it would go, you know, anywhere in the world and would be never seen again. And so that was, we'd almost kind of faced up to the fact that Britain would be losing the FA Cup. However, when I got the phone call to say that it had been bought by Sheikh Mansour for, you know, the nation as such and for Manchester, we were over the moon. And the fact that a club had been so supportive and generous means a lot to the National Football Museum.
This is the centre of football for me. This is a major footballing city, and that started in 1904 and has continued right the way through to modern day, where we have two major clubs competing at the highest level, and we've got the National Football Museum, so it has to be it.
The National Football Museum, you know, is a place where you come to share stories about football, and they've got to be the best stories, and they've got to be stories of national and international significance. And the FA Cup is unique in that respect.
When you get on that field, you want to continue that history, you want to continue leaving your stamp on stuff, and I feel in recent years we've been doing a lot of that, and you know, we're trying to match, you know, off the past as well. Long may that continue.